I must admit it happened the moment I swung open the entrance. It was bowled me over with seriously affection upon initial glance. Indeed, I believe for him it felt more perplexing. She was previously acclaimed as the ideal bronze hue, the supreme emblem of 1980s United States allure and eroticism. However, beneath those legendary braided locks and that brilliant grin, Bo Derek's existence was never the enchanted narrative the Globe envisioned. She ventured into the film industry at merely 16, lacking performance lessons, no agent, and nobody to safeguard her besides a gentleman 30 years senior who would evolve into her filmmaker, her paramour, and ultimately her spouse. He molded her into an inspiration, an impeccable creation before the lens, while converting her actual existence into a trial poised between affection and dominance. As the Globe revered her as a representation of liberty and attractiveness, Bo Derek resided within a luxurious prison, elegant, stunning, yet without an exit. And it required her half an existence to eventually disclose the complete reality. Regarding romance, regarding coercion, and regarding the cost she incurred for those two perilous terms. Flawless 10. In a realm where the glare can obscure even the most resilient spirits, was Bo Derek genuinely the flawless 10? Or was she merely a 16-year-old female eternally ensnared in a part another individual scripted for her? Accompany us while we reveal the sentimental voyage and the concealed sections behind the lady who endured it all and transformed into a myth of her own creation. Prior to becoming Bo Derek, the lady who could cause the entire globe to pivot its gaze, she was plainly Mary Kathleen Collins, delivered November 20th, 1956, in Long Beach, California. She matured with the odor of brine in the atmosphere and the noise of breakers smashing ceaselessly against moored vessels, where the sunlight plunged crimson into the skyline and individuals trusted the sea could mend every grief. Her dad, Paul Collins, a Korean War ex-soldier turned vessel constructor, was a reserved guy, structured like metal, every movement resonating the cadence of the armed forces. Her mom, Norma, bore the radiance of film industry illuminations, a cosmetics specialist for cinema celebrities, rubbing elbows daily with splendor and authority behind the curtains. Yet coming back home as a parent, merely seeking a modest, regular joy for her offspring. But their small household didn't remain serene for long. When Mary was too youthful to comprehend the term separation, her parents parted. There were no yells, no theatrical outbursts, just a quiet family craft dividing into two, leaving an empty void inside a youngster still acquiring to label the globe around her. From that instant onward, Mary comprehended in her own manner. She would have to forge her own independence. Then existence altered in an unexpected path. Her mom wed again Bobby Bass, one of the film industry's most esteemed stunt performers. If her dad symbolized regulations and structure, Bobby was the personification of hazard. He jumped from high structures without flinching, battled antagonists on screen without a replacement. To Mary, Bobby was audacity personified, while her mom represented sophistication and innovation. Those two contrasts shaped a distinctive realm, where Mary discovered that existence could be as sturdy as metal and as lovely as a sprinkling of rouge on a performer's face. Yet rather than entering the film industry through performance courses and esteemed instruction, as a female with a cinema visage supposedly odd, Mary selected the sea. She expended more time gliding on swells than seated in lecture halls. Education felt like restriction. The sea was an infinite volume awaiting perusal. The bite of ocean breeze against her epidermis, sunlight scorching her mouth. That was authentic liberty. As an adolescent, Mary defied softly, skipping lessons to go wave riding. No authorization, no justifications. Her mom fretted, but Mary didn't mind. Aspirations like physician, educator, performer didn't pertain to her. In her youthful thoughts, she desired only one item: to establish a wave-riding store and exist her existence with the swells. Then arrived the day that transformed everything. Mary accompanied her mom to a movie location, where she was laboring on cosmetics for Margaret, one of the film industry's most influential celebrities. While conversing, Margaret's stare abruptly halted on the sun-bronzed teenage female, donning sandals with tresses like shore grains and eyes transparent as the Long Beach sea after a tempest. She inclined her head, grinned, and uttered the phrase that would revise Mary's whole existence. This female possesses a cinema visage, one phrase, one chance, and a destiny unfolding. Not by Mary's choice, but by what the film industry perceived in her. From a female of the ocean, she was about to advance into a realm entirely distinct, a domain of illumination and renown, where commendation could elevate you to the skies, and controversy could pull you directly into the depths. From a female who evaded education to hasten to the sea, Mary Kathleen Collins advanced onto an entirely different route the instant and Margaret observed her, and presented her to John Derek, a 46-year-old filmmaker and previous performer who was then wed to broadcast celebrity Linda Evans. John perceived in the 16-year-old female an attractiveness and filmic capability he trusted the film industry had never held. He proposed her a tryout for Once Upon a Love, subsequently distributed as Fantasies, a movie to be captured in Greece, narrating a delicate tale about the amour between a youthful female and her adoptive sibling. But it was behind the curtains where the genuine theater and calamity transpired. During creation, their bond surpassed occupational limits. At the period, John Derek stayed wed to Linda Evans, a cherished celebrity of favored broadcast sequences. Linda herself was present on location, and she swiftly detected something had changed in her spouse's conduct. Whispers of John and Mary's bond disseminated quickly. It wasn't solely the age disparity that astonished the populace, but the reality that a wedded gentleman was publicly tender with a 16-year-old female. Linda Evans suddenly departed the endeavor they were laboring on and submitted for dissolution shortly thereafter. The controversy didn't merely position John Derek under severe censure. It hauled Mary into a vortex of assessment at an age much too youthful for her to genuinely comprehend the intricacy or repercussions of what was occurring. The matter was greater than the breakdown of a union. Their bond provoked disturbing inquiries about authority imbalance. John was a completely mature gentleman with sway in the sector, entirely forming and governing Mary's profession. His resolution to remove Mary from the United States to evade judicial complications in California only intensified the dispute. It was not solely a type of safeguard. It was a method for him to completely devise her destiny, both occupationally and individually. Those initial years were not simply the start of a profession. They were the commencement of Bo Derek's struggle to assert her individuality in a realm filled with obstacles. John's safeguard and dominance assisted her endure societal strain and film industry examination. And even aware the path ahead would be precipitous, she took her first intrepid steps, prepared to confront whatever ensued next. After becoming John Derek's lawful spouse, Bo basically exchanged her individual liberty for his affection and occupational guidance. John was not solely her spouse. He governed every facet of her appearance. Her tresses had to cascade extended precisely as he pictured. Her attire had to be loose yet erotic by his criteria. And even the creative bare photographs were arranged by him down to the tiniest particular. Became his sole inspiration, his possessed invention in front of his camera. He constructed her into a alluring symbol, though Bo herself was never sure if that was what she genuinely desired. Once Upon a Love, her initial movie captured in Germany, was mired in uncertainty, and Bo was compelled to await another opportunity. She only succeeded in obtaining a minor part in Orca, 1977, guided by Michael Anderson. The movie failed, but Bo drew notice thanks to a sequence where her figure is assaulted by a murderous whale and forfeits her limb. For most performers, it would have been a transient instant, but for Bo, it was the initial occasion viewers acknowledged her visage on the large display. The authentic pivotal moment arrived in 1979 when filmmaker Blake Edwards was hunting for the ideal lady to portray Jenny Hanley in 10, someone so enthralling that the male protagonist would forfeit all rationality. At the tryout, Bo entered with nothing but a delicate aspiration that this might be the opportunity to alter her existence. Within moments, Edwards perceived exactly what he had conceived on the sheet: an innate, luminous attractiveness that required no presentation. In the movie, Jenny Hanley was not an intricate mental figure. She was pure instinctive craving, the sort of youthful charm that propels individuals beyond limits. And that plainness perfectly aligned with Bo's communal appearance, still restricted as a performer, but every stride she took along the Mexican coastline made the camera adore her. In just a few instants of recording, the legendary shore sprint with braided locks and a shy yet assured grin, Bo Derek became the erotic symbol of the 1980s. 10 didn't merely propel her into film industry stardom, it implanted her appearance into popular culture. She obtained a Golden Globe candidacy for Emerging Celebrity of the Year, and her name immediately became a fresh benchmark of on-screen attractiveness. But when renown arrives, too swiftly, its gloom often extends just as lengthy. Her braids became a societal sensation, but they also ignited discussions about societal appropriation. When American Airlines was litigated for prohibiting an worker, Renee Rogers, from donning braids to labor, Bo Derek was referenced as evidence that the coiffure was permissible and communal. Without planning to, Bo became component of a societal dialogue far beyond her governance. Reviewers began to observe the pattern behind her ascent. The film industry wasn't handling Bo as a performer, but as a visual emblem. Renown constructed solely on looks meant the entrances to creative achievement were the same entrances that restricted her to the lovely but mute archetype. She had attained the peak with a solitary part, and it was there, at the elevation of splendor, that the fissures in both her profession and individual existence began to appear. Because John Derek, the gentleman who elevated her up, also possessed the key to secure her inside that very glare the Globe was commending. What nobody anticipated was that his subsequent movie for his spouse wouldn't raise her. It would become the initial thrust down a slick incline, and Bo didn't yet recognize she was advancing directly into a snare. After the brilliance of 10, the film industry anticipated Bo Derek to become the fresh principal performer of the 1980s, but actuality took a distinct direction. In 1980, she emerged in an alteration of periods alongside Anthony Hopkins and Shirley MacLaine, a movie seemingly assured triumph with its celebrity influence and audacious infidelity motif. Yet Bo's execution was censured as superficial, merely attractiveness in the incorrect location. The film flopped, and both confronted the brutality of reviewers for the initial occasion. 3 Razzie candidacies. Yesterday's commendation turned to doubt. Was she solely an attractive visage? The tempest continued expanding. In 1981, John Derek resolved to construct his spouse's appearance with Tarzan, the Ape Gentleman. But instead of honoring an escapade classic, the movie was converted into a display of excessive eroticism. Bao was the center of nearly every frame. The cascade baths, the intimate sequences with untamed creatures, even a segment with a primate that was trimmed by 3 minutes due to incensed regulators. The media labeled it a gentle erotica Tarzan, while reviewers positioned it among the most terrible films ever produced. Ironically, it premiered at #1 at the ticket sales. The disorder between funds and honor concluded with an agonizing strike. Bo Derek secured the Razzie for Worst Performer, but the descent had not yet attained nadir. In 1984, John Derek placed his spouse in Bolero, his aspiring endeavor to crown Bo the supreme emblem of filmic eroticism, but the populace solely perceived exploitation. The movie acquired an unclassified tag for explicit material and was vehemently denounced when John placed 14-year-old Olivia Debo in bare sequences. Controversy upon controversy. The outcome? Disastrous defeat. Bo Derek didn't merely secure another Razzie. She acquired the degrading designation of Worst Performer of the Decade. The illumination disappeared with savage velocity. Just a few years prior, she was the flawless 10. Now, the film industry perceived her as a jest, the punchline of attractiveness-driven renown. But her profoundest calamity wasn't her profession. It was secured behind the entrances of her residence. Bo was forfeiting her destiny simply to satisfy the sole gentleman she relied on. After the recurring humiliations in John Derek's endeavors, the film industry began to perceive Bo as an unsuccessful filmic trial. Between 1985 and 1988, she practically vanished from primary casting rosters. Scripts that once arrived to her now silently transferred to younger performers. The glare no longer hunted for her, and nobody protected her as sarcasm and brutality intensified against her. To many in authority, Bo Derek was an obsolete emblem, confined into inexpensive eroticism. John's ultimate endeavor to rescue her splendor arrived in 1989. Ghost can't perform it. Anthony Quinn, a film industry myth, was introduced to provide reliability and conceal the profession fractures. But anticipations turned into communal degradation. Reviewers considered it even inferior than Bolero. Script, performing, every component was criticized. At the Razzie Honors, Beau's name resounded again. For victories including Worst Film, Worst Performer, and Worst Filmmaker for John Derek. This occasion, the ridicule wasn't astonishing. It had become the standard response whenever Beau appeared. Yet what injured her most was the awareness she could no longer evade. Every entrance had shut because she pursued the route John desired, not the one she merited. Beau once aspired to a serene existence by the ocean, but instead of standing on the swells, she was ensnared inside a luxurious prison, where every beam of illumination depended on John. And when that illumination extinguished, all she possessed left were the most terrible designations of an whole decade. But fate never planned for Beau Derek's narrative to conclude as a calamity another individual scripted, because after everything, the most savage twist became the one that guided to her greatest pivotal moment. John Derek perished abruptly of cardiac failure, leaving Beau for the initial occasion to determine her own destiny. Are you prepared to advance into the most agonizing, yet most emancipating section of Beau Derek's existence? The 1990s indicated a fresh stage. The film industry no longer greeted Beau Derek, but she declined to vanish. After a sequence of degrading defeats, she came back with minor parts and broadcast endeavors to gradually reconstruct the populace's benevolence. Hot Chocolate, 1992, and Woman of Desire, 1994, were distant from magnificent works, but at least they were no longer catastrophes encountered with furious reaction. Then arrived Tommy Boy, 1995, where Beau emerged in a part oozing with irony, an alluring step-parent, a figure crafted from the very archetype the film industry had branded her with. But this occasion, viewers didn't ridicule her. They chuckled in a gentler, more compassionate manner, accepting a Beau Derek who could jest at her own appearance. It was one of the uncommon parts that mellowed her communal perception, substituting assessment with a bit more sympathy. Yet just as Beau commenced to discover fresh guidance, existence suddenly drew the drape on her fate. In 1998, John Derek, the gentleman who ventured into her existence when she was still an adolescent female, the gentleman who governed and sculpted her appearance from start to finish, perished of cardiac failure. To many, his demise might have appeared like her emancipation. But to Beau, it was the greatest forfeiture of her existence. In a concise discussion afterwards, she stated, "I've possessed the affection of I require anything additional." It wasn't uttered for theatrical impact. It was the admission from a lady who trusted she had already bestowed all her heart to a solitary affection. John's demise didn't just face Beau with solitude. It compelled her to confront the selections that formed her whole being. One of the heaviest emotions she bore was remorse toward Linda Evans, the lady who once adored John with all her belief, and who endured the profoundest injuries from the controversy years ago. Beau confessed this with agonizing sincerity, labeling Linda a lovely lady inside and out. Linda, in an uncommon gesture of film industry mercy, pardoned her, stating the fault resided with John, a gentleman never capable to withstand a fresh attractiveness. That pardon closed an injury that had endured decades, not with ovation from the press, but with the serene tranquility Beau had awaited so long to sense. After John Derek's demise, Beau temporarily courted former Republican legislator David Dreyer. But the bond didn't endure, perhaps because Beau wasn't prepared to unlock her heart again while still mourning such an enormous forfeiture. Sometime afterward, fate grinned when she encountered John Corbett in 2002. Presented by companions on a sightless encounter, Beau immediately sensed an uncommon feeling of linkage with the performer recognized for Sex and the Metropolis. John delivered her a serene, delightful contentment she had been lacking for so long. He was attracted to her intellect, plainness, and internal fortitude, while Beau valued his wit, benevolence, and the solace he provided her. Their bond flourished innately, free from external strain. They didn't hasten into union. Instead, they relished existence together at their farm in Santa Barbara, California. There, they accepted a serene existence away from the glare, tending for their canines and discovering delight in small, regular items. After nearly 2 decades collectively, Beau Derek and John Corbett covertly wed in 2020, only disclosed later by John in a discussion. This alliance indicated a fresh section in Beau's existence, evidence that affection is never restricted by time nor community's anticipations. Beau Derek has ultimately discovered the contentment she yearned for, an affection constructed on reciprocal comprehension and esteem. Her existence today with John Corbett is living evidence of tranquility after disorder, closing the sections filled with dispute and opening a fresh voyage filled with aspiration and affection. Entering the 2000s, when the glare of cinema no longer illuminated on her as it once did, Beau Derek commenced hunting for a fresh position on broadcast displays and in auxiliary parts, an essential serene interval to redefine her appearance. In endeavors like Hot Chocolate, 1992, Woman of Desire, 1994, and Tommy Boy, 1995, she emerged with a more relaxed essence, no longer compressed into the same erotic emblem pattern reused from her history. In Tommy Boy, when she portrayed the alluring step-parent, viewers perceived another aspect of not the shore deity, but a lady with everyday warmth and a playful simplicity about herself. There were faint yet authentic commendations. Her performing felt more innate, her presence more approachable and enchanting, although she still hadn't completely evaded the enormous gloom of her past appearance. The year 2006 indicated a pivotal moment not solely in Beau Derek's profession, but also in her communal identity, when the U.S. Department of State designated her as Special Representative on Wildlife Smuggling Matters. This wasn't just a designation. It was a confirmation that Beau Derek was no longer merely a display attractiveness, but a lady with the objective far greater than her appearance. Someone willing to utilize her voice for something significant. The metamorphosis was not boisterous, but it was an individual uprising, from erotic inspiration to forthright supporter. That same year, Beau assumed a principal part in the My Network TV sequence Fashion House, 2006, portraying Maria Johnny, the influential and shrewd leader of a fashion dominion. Maria was not just alluring, she was a power, a tactician, a guide, a lady accountable for the disorder and governance in her realm. It was a distinct rupture from the Beau of old. The press at the period labeled her execution an astonishment because she completely personified a part defined by authority rather than attractiveness. Though the part didn't secure major honors, it indicated a crucial landmark. She was no longer being positioned into another person's pattern, she was now selecting how she would be perceived. This resurgence, even if not a broadcast massive success, assisted viewers gaze at her differently, no longer as the film industry's attractiveness monarch, but as a lady who could function behind the authority. And from this pivotal moment, Beau Derek was prepared for a fresh section, one in which she was no longer another person's invention, but ultimately, the writer of her own existence. Entering the 2010s, Beau Derek no longer pursued major parts or desperately attempted to cling to her former splendor. She emerged in CSI, Miami, Chuck, Sharknado 3, Christmas in the Heartland, and Jail Ranch. Endeavors that did not ignite critical praise, but demonstrated something crucial. Beau did not vanish. She simply selected to emerge with more comfort and governance. These parts were minor, but never meaningless. They mirrored a lady who no longer possessed anything to demonstrate to the film industry and who no longer dreaded anyone's assessment. While her performing profession quieted, discovered a fresh enthusiasm, Canines and Warriors. She established Beau Derek Pet Care, an animal maintenance brand born from her authentic affection for creatures with earnings utilized to assist retired duty canines. Silent combatants often overlooked after their ultimate assignment. That initiative permitted the populace to uncover another aspect of Beau, no longer a provocative symbol, but a lady who commits her heart to living entities that cannot express gratitude. At the same occasion, she became an engaged participant of Wild Aid and the Animal Welfare Institute, while participating in initiatives for armed forces ex-servicemen. As if expanding the fondness she once possessed for her ex-serviceman dad and the courageous creatures who serve the nation. If once upon an occasion, Beau Derek made the globe hum with the attractiveness that ignited dispute, now she selected a quieter route, utilizing her renown to safeguard what is most delicate. And that metamorphosis brought her a distinct sort of contentment, one not generated by ovation, but by the relying gazes of her four-legged associates and the heart's existence had once defeated down. A fresh Beau Derek slowly surfaced. And the odd item was that for the initial occasion in her existence, she didn't have to flee, didn't have to exhibit herself, didn't have to be the flawless 10. But there was still one item the populace didn't know. While everything appeared serene, Bo was advancing nearer than ever to a joyful conclusion she once trusted she would never possess. In 2002, after years distant from the film industry's brilliant illuminations, Bo Derek unexpectedly advanced into a affection narrative she would subsequently label the commencement of tranquility. Her fresh companion was performer John Corbett, broadly recognized for his part in Sex and the City. Unlike the stormy history, their initial rendezvous involved no strain of renown, no swirling whispers. They encountered through a shared acquaintance and simply expended the evening viewing a film and conversing longer than anticipated. Their affection was not a brilliant, enchanted romance, but camaraderie, esteem, and providing each other the area to respire, something Bo had never genuinely acquired when she was a governed inspiration. 18 years collectively were not always seamless, but each elapsing year fortified the sensation that they selected each other, not each other's appearance. By 2020, Bo Derek and John Corbett resolved to formalize their bond through union. They conducted a private ceremony at a farm in Santa Ynez, California, where they nurture equines, cultivate trees, and are pursued everywhere by 3 German shepherds. Existence there has no platform illumination. Illuminations, no lens flashes, only the breeze, the noise of hooves, and their plain chuckles every afternoon. Bo once stated, "Here, I get to be myself, not the symbol individuals anticipate." Not halting at constructing a fresh existence, Bo still preserved her linkage to performing. In 2021, she emerged in the broadcast movie Jail Ranch, The Wedding Gift, indicating a mild yet significant resurgence. The part wasn't large, but every occasion Bo appeared on display it reminded the viewers, this is a lady who has existed through elevations and depressions and is now existing her own existence, plain, free, and satisfied. Entering the 2023 to 2025 interval, Bo Derek almost entirely advanced away from movie locations. She has selected an existence many once thought she would never attain. Oh, serene, free, and full of objective. Every day, Bo commits time to endeavors she trusts can make the globe a little superior. Organizations assisting ex-servicemen, initiatives tending for and rescuing creatures, campaigns to elevate awareness about animal welfare. From an erotic emblem generated through the lens of males, Bo Derek has become a lady who redefines herself through benevolence and sympathy. No more discussions about her flawless physique, no more examining stares. Instead, there are greetings, fundraising initiatives, and retired duty canines she tends for as component of her household. The press has ultimately commenced to perceive Bo differently. Individuals and Vanity Fair both brought her back to the cover, not to discuss about the braided locks that once ruled the 1980s, but to honor her as a societal symbol, who has surpassed periods, remembered not solely for her attractiveness, but for her bravery in ascending after assessment and errors. And that is the most remarkable item about Bo Derek. If her youth was linked to controversy and the sensation of being owned, then her later years have become the occasion when she ultimately possessed her existence. From the female who evaded education to pursue affection, to the display deity interred under the globe's anticipations, to the lady who quietly mended herself among expansive fields, Bo Derek has demonstrated that sometimes it requires half an existence to discover your authentic self. Not everyone can become a flawless 10, but Bo Derek has shown that flawlessness means nothing without liberty, and that liberty she incurred with her own youth. Bo Derek ventured into the film industry like an energy dashing against the current. With no official instruction, no family designation to raise her, yet she became a sensation with just a solitary instant of dashing along the shore. She redefined the notion of an erotic emblem of her era, not through crude display, but through an attractiveness that felt innate, untamed, and almost primitive. The flawless 10 tag the Globe positioned on her was not plainly an appraisal of her physique. It was the gauge of a societal delusion. The film industry trusted flawlessness could be fabricated through the male stare. But Bo's heritage does not reside in the steamy banners or in the millions of hearts once ignited. It resides in the discussions she compelled society to face. Where does creativity conclude and dominance commence? From controversies encircling her braided locks to censures of the eroticization of females in movie, Bo Derek stood at the core of dialogues about expressive liberty and the concealed reality behind the glare. She is also a primary illustration of the savage exchange of renown, a ability confined by the gentleman standing behind her, the same gentleman who elevated her to the summit and hauled her into the depths. Bo's voyage compelled the film industry to contemplate on the part of celebrity creators and the gentle aggression they can impose on youthful females. Yet what individuals recall about Bo is not the Razzie honors or the defeats once ridiculed, but her refusal to crumble. When controversies and bias appeared to pulverize her profession, Bo did not vanish in resentment. She selected to be reborn in her own manner, becoming a voice for creatures, for ex-servicemen, and for those overlooked when the illuminations extinguish. Renown once limited her and ultimately became the very instrument she utilized to make existence superior for others. Today, when individuals speak of Bo Derek, they no longer reference solely the legendary attractiveness of the 80s. They speak of a brave lady who once existed in the gloom of a gentleman and ultimately ascended to become herself. In a realm where flawless tens exist solely for a transient instant, Bo Derek has demonstrated that authentic flawlessness resides in never halting the struggle to reclaim your own existence. Even if you must commence over at an age when others think it is too tardy, some individuals expend their whole lives hunting for a location where they genuinely pertain. For Bo Derek, that location is not the crimson rugs or the thundering ovation, nor in the flawless 10 designation once enforced upon her by the film industry. Her contentment resides in the plainest items. A serene afternoon in the meadows, the noise of hooves against the soil, and the hug of a companion who doesn't desire to alter a solitary item about her. While the Globe once perceived Bo as a product of male craving, she selected to define herself through sympathy and a hard-earned autonomy. She no longer needs to demonstrate she is flawless by anyone else's criteria. The bravery to revise her existence after being governed, assessed, and dismantled. That is the most luminous triumph Bo Derek ever accomplished. And perhaps, in a realm that constantly enforces criteria on females, the reality that Bo still stands elevated, step by step, leaving behind the gloom of her history, to become the lady she herself esteems. That is the sole, genuinely flawless 10 existence could ever bestow. When you gaze back on Bo Derek's voyage, what impacts you as more potent? The attractiveness that once entranced the Globe or the determination to emancipate herself from every restriction? Share your ideas below and inform us. Does Bo Derek merit to be commemorated as an emblem of liberty and endurance? And you trust that everyone merits to exist fully as themselves. Tap like and enroll so you don't overlook more narratives as tragic yet motivating as this one. Remain with us as we persist investigating lives that the Globe thinks it already comprehends, but the reality has never been completely narrated.